The Last of Us and expectations. The Last of Us is the single game I wanted to play the absolute most on the PlayStation. It's the game I heard about countless times on the internet from strangers to my friends who have played it who said, dude, this game is amazing, you need to play it, you would love it. I've heard that over and over for 4 years, so finally, when I got a PlayStation 4 Pro, thanks to Eric Cordero, the first game I wanted to tackle was The Last of Us. Did I love the game like everybody said I would, or did my expectations set the bar too high for it to reach? What's up, guys? Randall Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. This time we're going to be talking about The Last of Us and how my expectations played a part in my overall feeling for this game. So, how would you feel if you were playing a game or about to play a game and every single comment that you got about it was that you're gonna love this, it's the best game ever, this game is right up your alley, etc, etc, etc. For years I've heard nothing. All I've heard about from people is that The Last of Us is a game that I would love, being as someone who loves stories and characters in games. So when I finally sat down to play the game, I had this unnatural expectation in my head that I was about to have a life-changing experience. But did that actually happen? How did the expectations and Last of Us coincide? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, Last of Us. So Last of Us is an action-adventure kind of horror game. You play as Joel, and it is basically a post-apocalyptic game. It's 2033. Society is on the brink of collapse because a fungus, the cordyceps fungus, went out of control, turning people into these zombie-like creatures called the clickers, cannibalistic creatures, and they ravaged across the country. And 20 years later, you, Joel, are working as kind of a smuggler, and you take a job with your friend Tess. After hunting down and getting back your stolen weapons, you are tasked with the job of taking Ellie from this place to another place across the country. And this is basically where The Last of Us gets started, is when Joel and Ellie meet up. Now, Joel and Ellie, Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson, are probably the absolute best things in this game. My God, their interactions, their voice actings, their motion capture are incredible. Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson make this game, in my opinion. They are the reason I ended up liking this game as much as I did, and they helped get me out of that expectations that I was talking about before. Because, and let's talk about that right now, I wasn't enjoying this game in the beginning at all. I was constantly thinking, when is this game going to get good? Is this game not as good as I thought? Did I wait too long to play it? It's 4 years has been a long time. There are games that have copied The Last of Us, that's gameplay ideas, some of the set pieces and things like that, that I played after it came out. So I kind of felt that the game was hyped up too much, that I set these expectations in my head too high. Too high. And since the game is set up into 4 chapters, summer, fall, winter, and spring, I wasn't enjoying summer. Now, eventually I got to the point that I did, because the closer and closer Joel and Ellie got, the more and more and more I liked the game. Kudos to Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson. They most likely, and in fact, I'm going to say, gave the best 2 performances I've ever came across in a video game ever. They made the game for me. They made it enjoyable. I needed to see how the game progressed. I wasn't really liking the game until the end of summer, honestly. That entire summer chapter, I just wasn't feeling the game. But as you got closer, as Joel and Ellie got closer, I ended up liking it. Now, there was a part here where I just couldn't stop playing it. Once it hit spring, I pretty much played to fall without stopping for the most part. But But let's talk about some of the other aspects that I thought were absolutely critical to my enjoyment of the game and me busting out of my expectations that I had set in my head. The combat. I love the stealth focus in the game, honestly. I always appreciate it when games give you a stealth option to tackle the objectives any way that you feel. So, like, any of those combat scenarios I went to, I always tried to tackle them as stealthily as I could. And I really enjoyed the brutal feel of the hand-to-hand combat whenever you did have to go into that hand-to-hand combat. The punching them in the face, the grabbing of the bar and smashing their heads in. It felt so brutal and so satisfying. I love doing that. On the flip side, the gunplay isn't the best. So there is that. There's kind of negative to the combat. I felt the gunplay wasn't very good. My favorite weapon to use was the bow and arrow. I loved kind of sneaking around and shooting guys through the head with a bow and arrow so I could retrieve that. Now, then you talk about the ammos and supplies. And since this game is set in a post-apocalyptic story, it's only natural that you have to scavenge around to find supplies, to find ammo, to grab scissors and rags so you can make medkits or make Molotovs, nail bobs, shivs, etc. And each of those things are structured in a way where, like, health. If you want to make a health pack, you can, but you may not even make Molotovs. So that's kind of the gameplay idea they're going for there. Like, you can create one thing, but you may not be able to create another. And I loved exploring and trying to get as many of these items as I possibly can to craft as much of the things I can, as I could. And of course, it has an upgrade system where you can upgrade Joel if you found the supplements, so you can upgrade his health or upgrade his weapon sway, which I think is important. You should do that because I wasn't really enjoying the combat at all until I kind of lessened the weapon sway. Same thing with the weapons. You come across these metal filings. I don't really know what they're called. You pick those up and you can upgrade your weapons. So your shotgun has more ammo and has less recoil and things like that. Now there is a listening mode. You can press right bumper or R1 on the PlayStation and you kind of can see enemies through the walls because you can hear them. That felt a little too gamey for me. But I used it as much as I could because, honestly, it's there. Why not use it? So I used it to my advantage. Now, the other thing I really loved about the presentation of the game is the lack of a HUD. I love it when games give you this lack of a HUD feeling. So when you're walking around, especially when you're in the exploration sections and it's just you. You don't have an ammo counter. You don't have a health. It's just this beautiful game presented on screen. Now the clickers. Interestingly enough, I enjoyed fighting the humans more than I enjoyed fighting the clickers. The clickers felt like basically zombies to me. They had a really cool, interesting design, and I love the fact that they couldn't see. But I really more enjoyed fighting the human enemies. They talked more. They would flank you more often. They were more interesting to fight. Whereas the clickers, yeah, you could kind of go up there and stealth some of the runners, the ones that haven't been infected long. But I always kind of just tried to sneak my way past them. But if you did kind of anger one, it would just be a zombie rush at you, and you'd have to take them all down. Scary in some aspects. There are parts where you are in an enclosed area and one of the big bloaters drops down with the actual clickers that can kill you in one hit. But combat-wise, stealth-focus-wise, I enjoyed fighting the human enemies more. And that's where kind of like the gray area comes in, because the people you're fighting, the enemies that you're fighting in this game, since it's such a post-apocalyptic world and everyone's out for themselves, those people are just trying to survive just like you. And Joel isn't necessarily a great guy either. He's killed plenty of people, and same thing with these guys. They're just trying to survive. So there's this element of gray where they're not exactly bad guys and you're not exactly a good guy. All these people that you're killing basically have families too. So it's an interesting thought when you're going through the whole game. Another thing I really loved about the game was the pacing. I thought the pacing of this game was phenomenal, especially coming from Uncharted 1, which I played right after. Jeez. I loved the extended combat sections, which then would lead into long exploration segments, because the long exploration segments were amazing to me. I loved getting the extra dialogue between Joel and Ellie, because their relationship is what essentially made me end up loving the game, because I loved those two characters. So anytime where I got to spend more walking around, grabbing the planks and helping Ellie get to and fro, enjoying the scenery with her, like you guys know the giraffe scene towards the end of the game where you just sit there and admire this beautiful scenery. I longed for those type of scenes in this game. They were so well done. And of course it brings it back to the reason I ended up loving this game, because of Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson's portrayal of Joel and Ellie. Truly fantastic, and I can't praise them enough for the job they did. Now the game is also light on set pieces, but it makes it more impactful when it does use them. And you know the set pieces I'm talking about. When you're hanging upside down and the clickers are rushing in, so you got to shoot all the clickers before they can get to Ellie. Or when you're jumping over a bus and you fall in and the river rushes in and you're trying to escape from the bus, but you just can't. Or when the truck with a mounted gun is bearing down on you, trying to kill you. Those set pieces were so much fun, and you feel the tension when you're doing that, because they're few and far between. If there was a lot of them, it probably would have lessened the impact, but I greatly enjoyed those scenes. And they have to talk about the sound design, because the music in the game is phenomenal. Now, I'm not sure who did the sound design or the score, but oh my god, like that music in my headset was phenomenal. I love the Last of Us theme, you know, that little theme with the guitar. So good. It's so good. I also, since I played it on the PS4 Pro, I could play it in 4K 30 or 1080p 60. I would go back and forth. Now, the game obviously improves greatly in combat when you play it in 60 frames, as it should. The game feels more smoother. But also, when you're in those exploration segments, looking at the destroyed skyscrapers with the green grass overflowing everything, oh man, the game just looks stunning in 4K. Stunning in 4K. Now, there is one particular scene I wanted to talk about. I've tried to remain spoiler-free, although I probably won't be. Is the scene in the hospital. So the whole point of the game is you're Joel, and you're taking Ellie to the Fireflies because she is immune to the cordyceps virus. And of course, when you get to the hospital and you finally get to the Fireflies, yes, she is immune, and they are going to take the infection out of her, but she will die in the process. And obviously, this is a story of redemption for Joel, and he feels a connection to Ellie like he did to his daughter, Sarah. And there's this scene in the hospital where he is carrying her out, set to that great music and the flashing lights and people trying to basically shoot them, that harkens back to the very beginning of the game, which a clip I had put in earlier, where you are carrying Sarah ultimately to her death. What an emotional scene that was. Probably the best opening to a video game I have ever played, honestly. That really set the tone for what to expect. You know that Joel loves Sarah, and that he would do anything to protect her. She dies in his arms. So when he meets Ellie, another young girl, you know eventually down the road that he's going to want to protect her in a way he protected Sarah. And sure enough, by the end, he's calling her baby girl. He's maybe projecting a little bit of Sarah onto her. And of course, when it comes down to it, he can't let them kill them. He goes crazy, kills everybody, or at least I killed everybody, and runs her out of the hospital in such a fantastic scene that I replayed right after that because my breath was taken away by how impactful it was. And of course, you get to the end, the last scene, where she has, I think, an inkling that he lied to her. You know, he told her that they didn't need her, that they had a whole bunch of other people that were, immune. And I don't think she believes him. And the last scene itself, I thought was a little anticlimactic, that I didn't like that much. But hey, it is what it is. So anyways, The Last of Us. Oh, what a game. Going from my expectations, where I set the bar way too high and nothing could possibly grab up to that. I thought I was going to be doing this review being like, I didn't like this game. But Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson's portrayal of Joel and Ellie made me love the two characters, their interactions, their story, which made me love this game. Last of Us has everything and is everything I love about video games. It has a great and interesting story combined with extremely well-acted characters and a great visual setting. There's not much more praise I can give The Last of Us. Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson saved me for my expectations. The stealth focus of the combat really helped me feel like more engaging with the story, because the actual gunplay itself wasn't very good, but I am a stealth kind of guy, so I enjoyed that aspect. And the way the game looks and the way the game plays is so freaking good that if I had to go back to 2013, I would give this game my game of the year. And as it stands right now, to be honest with you, if I had to put Last of Us up with the other games this year, Last of Us would probably be my game of the year right now. So I'm going to give it a 9.5. A truly great game that was saved by two of the best video game characters, Joel and Ellie, portrayed by Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson. Truly saved The Last of Us from my unnaturally high expectations. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see everybody later.